Very good afternoon. Today we have with us Assistant Commissioner of Police from Bangalore, Najma Farooqi, who is going to be interacting with us related to various problems which we face as doctors in our day-to-day practice. We are lucky to be interacting with Najma Farooqi because she is, I think, one of the youngest Assistant Commissioners of Police and she has a special interest in cybercrime as well as cyber security. I welcome you on this particular platform to have a discussion related to various topics and the various aspects which we face as difficulties in our work.
Hello, Dr.
Welcome,
Rajesh.
welcome, Nazma.
Hello,
To
Dr.
begin,
Rajesh. Thank you
yes,
for giving me an
with I would
opportunity
like
to.
to, yeah, to begin with, I would like to highlight on some of the common problems which we face as doctors. And I had a pleasure to interact with you last Sunday when I was in Bangalore during a CME, and we had a panel discussion and medico legal aspects. Something similar to that in continuation of that discussion. There are various scenarios that I would like to discuss with you. The first and the commonest one which we face as doctors is uh, very commonly that we have a patient who has come when the patient is serious, patient is having a critical condition, they want to get admitted under any circumstances. But sometimes when the critical stage is over, when the difficult part of the surgical procedure is over, patient has partially recovered, when that part is done, then the next part which comes into the picture is the financial aspect, that suddenly then the relatives or the patient's well-wishers are not either able to or very keen on making the payment of the bill which has been worked up. So one of the commonest tactics nowadays which the patients and the relatives utilize is that either we reduce the bill or they are going to go and file a police complaint regarding some inadequacy of treatment which has been happening or that their patient is not being cared for. Has you have you ever experienced any such complaint coming to you, and what is your suggestion regarding this?
Yes, doctor. So, as you said, it's very much common, it's very much true. People once get themselves treated in the hospital, they feel the bills are very heavy. That's one part of the story. I've experienced this during my practical training in Hoskote, where there was a case. The patient had got admitted. He seemed to be very serious over a period of 10-15 days. Then, after treatment, post treatment, when there was a sort of asymmetricity which could be observed, where the patient had a very high bill and still he had to recover a lot. He was on the road of recovery, but still there is a lot to be done, and somewhere they felt they have lost faith in that establishment and they wanted to move out, and the hospital authorities did not give a discharge summary, uh, because the payments have to be made. That's very much natural. Once services have been rendered, the payment has to be duly made by the customers or the clients. In your case of hospital, there are the patients and their attendants. They need to make payments, but still they somehow try to evade it. So, my perspective is the doctors here have to be in communication with the patient and their attendants on a daily basis. They need to give their progressive treatment, whatever is been happening, the progress of the recovery, that has to be explained to the attendants as well as the patient on a daily basis, which usually doesn't happen. The doctor comes, checks up, and then writes a note in the history sheet what a case file is being maintained for patient that is being kept in the hospital. So, as far as transparency in this is concerned, it plays a very vital role. So, as doctors, I request you to get in touch with the patient and the attenders on a daily basis. So, whoever comes for a checkup has to explain what is being given I understand all the medical terminologies, a patient or the attendants, they don't understand it all through, and you cannot go to a very lower level to make them understand broadly. You need to make sure the attendants they understand what is happening, what are the treatments which are being given, so that nothing comes up in a very complicated way later. Once in a while, if such things happen and such occurrences occur and patient goes to file a complaint against the hospital authorities, in such cases, prima facie, we will be looking into what has actually happened. Unless there is just misappropriation or non-payment of dues to the hospital authorities, nothing much can be done against the hospital or the doctors. Let me assure you that part. So,
Actually,
on
that
the
is what
last,
we expect. The problem, what happens is that most of the times, 90% of the times, 9 out of 10 times, what usually would end up happening is the hospital will either waive off the entire bill or reduce the bill significantly just to get out of the situation. Because nowadays it has become a little commoner for the patients to use this tactic that we will go to the police and we will file a complaint against you, and the thought which comes in the doctor's mind is whether this is going to create a problem for him or his practice.
not at all. As long as your bills are clear, not as long as you have made so and so test regarding so and so thing, because the opinion again will be given by the medical board. So if the tests were required or not, they are going to judge it and give an opinion on that. So as far as the bills are concerned, if they are as per the treatment given to the patient for the um, whatsoever diagnosed disease or impairedness would be there, you wouldn't be in suit. We can assure you that.
Yes. And the problem again here arises is that patient would not complain that the bill is very high or we are not willing to pay the bill. They usually bring out the thing that there is some inadequacy of treatment, and they always claim that the patient is not allowed to be moved out of the hospital or the patient is being held in the hospital against their will. And the catch situation is, unless a payment is made, the hospital is not really keen on letting the patient go, because that is as good as waiving off the bill. Now, in those scenarios, is the hospital liable?
Not at all. Yes, the patient has to pay the bills, but when the patient or the attenders they are urging to move to another hospital, they have to be moved. But you can take the help of the police to console or communicate to them that the bills have to be cleared before the patient is being moved. We can help you out in that
So,
way.
yeah, so basically, we should logically look at as a helping point that if they are approaching the police, then it should work in the favor that the police should be understanding and helping enough that this is the situation and the bills have to be cleared.
That depends on the relationship you build with the police.
Yes, that is very true. That is very true.
Yes.
In an extension to the same thought, there is a further discussion which I wanted to have with you, that sometimes there is some complication in a surgery or there is some problem in the treatment because of which the patient is not recovering well, and it might take a little longer for the patient to recover. So this is not about the payment of dues or the charges. This is just about anything which has not been expected as an outcome. I'm not talking about patient expiring or death, but something which is less than that. Rarely we do find that some relatives or some local activist which is who is living in their area try to utilize this as a target. The doctors become a soft target to extract money, with the same premise that unless you pay this much amount, we are going to approach the police and file a complaint against you. So where does the doctor stand as far as that particular aspect is concerned, in your opinion? Do you have any particular suggestions?
It's very natural for the patients who are already emotionally, so much trouble to reach out to their closest um, strengths. I can say strengths. When they feel they don't have a voice to let out and no one is hearing them out, there are chances where people would come on their behalf. People would interrupt or talk or try to convince the authorities on their behalf. It's quite natural. Not just people from the lower strata of the society, but also from the middle class. They feel they have been ignored, their voices are unheard, and so they try to reach out to places where they feel they are in a comfort zone. And mostly they don't reach out to the police. They go to their local political counterparts who can voice out for them. That's very natural. So
Very true.
being the case, it's always on a healthy note. The hospitals, as I said before, should be in touch with the local police. I don't say people should not come, the groups, pressure groups shouldn't be coming, or the political groups shouldn't be coming. They have their own rights, but they shouldn't be vandalizing the establishment. They shouldn't be creating a riot in front of the establishment. That is not agreeable. They come, they can voice out their feelings, whatever, in case of injustice which has happened to them. Yes, they can do it, but through proper channel. They can approach the police, but they cannot create a ruckus in front of the hospital. That is completely unacceptable. In case where such things occur, the Karnataka state government has created a special act for it. Karnataka Prohibition of Violence Against Medicare Service Personnel and Damage to Property of Medicare Establishments 2009. So this act clearly says any sort of violence in an hospital, in an establishment, whether government or private, or even a nursing home or a clinic, is not acceptable. That would be a cognizable and a non bailable offense, and a penalty can also be put on the person who have caused the riots, the offenders. In case of any loss to the institution, such loss has to be paid by the offenders, and it goes into the Karnataka state treasury according to the Karnataka Land Revenue Act 1964. So that said, we can always say the hospital authorities have to be in touch with the local police. But that doesn't mean any irregularity would be succumbed to. Any probe would be conducted by the medical board. The opinion when given, the police will come into action. Any probe which would be conducted by the medical board, based on the opinion, the police would come into action. Am I clear,
Yes, that is true.
Dr.
This is
Rajesh?
also an yeah. This is also an extension of the same thought that lot of times.
Is it
Uh,
audible?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you quite clearly. So, as an extension, what I mentioned was this is something which we do face sometimes when there is an unexpected death or a bereavement which happens in the hospital. And the emotional part comes into the picture where the relatives become unsettled, upset. From this context, I wanted two opinions from your side. One opinion which I wanted to you about it is any death which is unacceptable to the relatives. I'm not talking about a natural death because of cardiac arrest or because of excessive bleeding, but any young patient or during surgery a patient has expired. Uh, the natural approach which a lot of relatives and patients, well wishers, they end up taking is that they start blaming the hospital for the death, that you have killed the patient or the hospital has killed the patient, and then they want to approach the police with that particular context, that it's not about a death happening because of treatment, but there is some specific negligence or an intent to kill. That is the whole approach. While as the Hippocrates oath, or no doctor, whoever is practicing, would ever want any harm to the patient from happening. This is where we really struggle sometimes, that the approach to having a death in the hospital becomes a major issue, not only from the medical management perspective, but what the repercussions are. And again, to extend that, it becomes the considerate problem of having a mob violence, which you just discussed. What is your suggestion related to these circumstances which arise in a hospital?
There was this case here when, yeah, again, when I was in during my practical training, where the patient had just delivered a baby, and the attenders, their relation, whether it be parents, sisters, they had come to visit her. So it so happened that the sister had been going through a stomach pain since 2 days. So her parents suggested, anyhow, you have come to a hospital, why don't you show? So when the doctor was approached, she was being admitted in the hospital for the stomach pain. She was told that she has some sort of infection and she was being treated for it. Unfortunately, she succumbed to the treatment and expired just 2 days after getting admitted. Here, the hospital authorities delayed in giving information to the police. Not just that, they also happened to keep the body in the ICU, stating that the treatment is going on, she needs extra care, and she needs to be admitted. Is it audible?
We lost you for a minute, but now you're audible again.
Dr. Rajesh?
We can hear you now. You're audible now. It hanged for a second, but we are able to hear you. So till the time the audiovisual part gets cleared off, I would also want to put in some suggestions or some thoughts as my own from this particular side.
Padmadi.
Yeah, now you're back online. We can hear you now.
Yeah. So I was saying, so the body was kept there, and it was not brought into the notice that the patient had succumbed to the treatment and stuff like that. It was delayed. Whatsoever the reasons, that shouldn't have happened. I feel there was some sort of communication gap between the doctors and the patient, the attenders. In such situation, it's a very tricky situation where the doctors don't act, they get panic. They get into a panic situation. They don't know what to do. And all this is because they are not aware of what is going to happen next,
Very true.
how they are
That's
going to
actually
handle the
very
issue.
true. Yes.
Yeah. So they just want to hide things. They don't want to confront it. Leave alone the doctors who have been treating the patient. They have been secluded now by the hospital itself. You deal, it's your case. So they enter a panic situation where the doctors feel helpless. They are they are having this insecurity of their job, about their license, about their future. So which makes the situation even more tricky, more complicated. And every second your chance of uh, controlling the situation, communicating to the patient side, everything keeps on losing. So, to control it, right from the moment the doctor takes up the case of a patient, I feel from that very moment, you need to bond with the patient. Bonding is very much required. This is to be done on a daily basis with every patient you treat. Sidelines, on the same way, in the same way, you need to connect with the local police, get in touch with them. So if you are in contact with them, we get to know the nature, the behavior of a person. So in case of such complicated situations, we can stand by them, at least as an abstract, because we know the person, we are in contact with them on a regular basis. We can say yes, no untoward incident or intentional treatment has been given to bring to this situation where the treatment has gone wrong and the patient has succumbed to it. So we can also stand by the doctor unless he's a stranger to us. So when you know a
Yes.
person, you can stand by him. And that also gives a backup. Your self consciousness starts thinking. Your mind starts working. You come to a situation where your mind is at peace, and you can then decide what has to be done next. When you are completely solo, isolated, when there is no one to help you, these things work out a lot. Even when the hospital authorities have lost the contact, are not backing up the doctor, I'll tell you, I can assure you that the police can stand by them.
That's very nice to
Of
hear.
course.
Yes. And in
And
addition
of
to
course,
this, like this, just yes, just one point I wanted to make here in addition to what you are saying, that fine, it does happen that you get panicky and you get worried about what is going to happen next. So like every hospital for its renewal of registration does a fire drill and some other drills, I believe there is a necessity for the doctors also to practice a mock drill, that in case of a mishap or a patient expiring, what is the steps to be followed. Because in a place like Akola, where I am residing, we also have a WhatsApp group of IMA doctors, that in case of any mishap happening in any hospital, irrespective of whether the patient's relatives are relaxed, comfortable, or they are agitated, we send a message across in the group. So all the doctors are aware that there might be a situation which can come up in a particular hospital. So if the next message comes that the relatives are agitated or there is some mob coming up, then a lot of doctors would rush to aid that doctor. Because as you said, no, being alone and being without any help is what makes a person more panicky and more prone to creating add-on mistakes. And
yes,
definitely it would be nice to connect to the local police person. Do you have any particular suggestions regarding that? Because see, till the time you don't cross a bridge till you come to that. That is a usual situation which happens as far as connecting with the police is concerned. But otherwise, apart from that, do you have any particular suggestions?
yes. So first of all, dial 100. Namma police, dial 100.
Yes.
So no matter what, a hoisada reaches you out max to max 10 minutes. The latest is the emergency response system, that is dial 112. Other than this, yes, we have the local police inspector, the local police ACP, who can reach out to you. You need to always save the control room number, divisional control room number, the nearest police station number. There is something called beat police which works in our state. So the beat police conducts meeting every month. In case there is a hospital in the locality, one of the responsible person, even a admin or a PRO, can attend a meeting and get in touch with the local officers, with the neighborhood. Other than this, as you said, when there is a mob, what to do? Yes, a mock drill can be conducted by the local police station to know where is the entrance of the hospital, what are the emergency exits available in case the patient succumbs, how the patient has to be moved out of the institution. There would be major entries and exits, which the local police also should have a knowledge about. So, mock drills will be very supportive, very helpful in such crisis. Creating a WhatsApp group, being part of the WhatsApp group always keeps you in touch of the current scenarios. So, that is also advisable. Other than that, the police, when in such a situation, reaches to the hospital. The priority lies on us so that the local hospital personnel or doctors, practitioners, our first priority is to protect them. Nothing should happen to them. Second, disperse the mob. How do you disperse? Of course, with discussions. Nothing else can work out at that time. Dispersing the mob is our priority at that time. Nothing, no harm should happen onto the institution. We'll make sure enough force is drawn and enough protection is given to the personnel, Medicare personnel over there, whether it will be the staff, the nurses, the doctors, anyone. Our whole priority is to protect the institution and disperse the mob. After dispersing the mob, in case there are certain conditions to move out the body to a certain mortuary or to a different institution altogether and conduct a PM, that's the next part. So, controlling the mob and dispersing them and protecting the practitioners and staff and nurses is our priority.
Yes, from our side also, I always, just as an add-on to that particular advice, from our side also, we have this that we have a group so that in case we feel that a mob is collecting, I would request my colleagues and 8 to 10 of my colleagues would come and stand with me. That moral support definitely helps. We also have in that same, there are some lawyers who help us with the paperwork, because second aspect of dealing with the situation is some discrepancy which comes up in the paperwork at a later date, because in that panicky situation completing the paperwork becomes a big hassle for the attending doctor. But that also unfortunately requires a priority, because if anything is not available on the paper as having been done or having been administered to the patient, that lacuna itself becomes a major limiting factor in getting the doctor to save himself or herself when the matter
Of
goes to
course.
court or when it comes under scrutiny. On a similar
Yes.
note, I believe that what has been advised in one of our groups is, like, for example, whenever the patient has expired, everything is documented. Even the vials, the empty vials of whatever injections have been given have to be kept as a evidence to be available even to the police, because when the police will come and they will document everything, that what has been seen in the operation theater, what empty vials they have found, because they, it has to collaborate with what has been administered to the patient on paper. It cannot be sent that we have given two injections or 2 ampules of adrenaline to the patient and the vial is only one, because that discrepancy shows a different kind of an intent that the paperwork has been made up. So all these things really matter a lot in trying to control. Definitely we look forward to having the police in more of a supportive role rather than an antagonistic role, and having a discussion definitely has helped ease some thoughts and some concerns in our minds. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for sparing us your valuable time and being with us on this live program.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Thank you so much. It was indeed a very informative program where even I got to know the different perspectives of how doctor look up to the police.
Key
So,
situation, and we always wish to be on the favorable side of the law and the regulations.
sure, sure. We would always be there for your support and security.
Yes. Thank you again. And with this, we would like to end our session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.